Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Center, where the social partnership has been meeting for a large part of today. At this time, Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Moore Motley, and members of the social partnership will speak about the process of today's talks and the outcome. Prime Minister?
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, Barbadians, we had a successful meeting this afternoon in the sense that we have agreed on a process that will guide us as we go forward, particularly on this difficult and challenging issue of COVID-19 vaccinations and testing. Let me say at the outset, however, that our meeting was much more than COVID, and our regular business meeting continued with respect to other aspects of concerns to members of the social partnership. But for the purpose of this press briefing, which was self-called by the media, who are here, we want to share with you the essence of what we've agreed to, because we think it is important so that Barbadians understand what will take place over the next few weeks. We have agreed that the Honorable Attorney General will prepare or have prepared a legal opinion looking at both civil and criminal liability with respect to aspects of mandatory vaccination and mandatory testing or failure thereto, and the consequences of engaging in a way that may be reckless, that may cause harm to others. We leave it as broad as that. We expect that that opinion will be made available to us on or before the 6th of August, and that will then trigger a process that will involve both sectoral and national consultations in the ensuing weeks. We will start with the consultations within the social partnership because, as you appreciate, the social partnership is not just a single private sector body or a single labor union or workers' association. And therefore, we will segment those discussions. They will be led by a team of ministers. In the sectoral ones, it will be led by Minister Colin Jordan, the Minister of Labour, as well as the Minister of Home Affairs, Wilfred Abrams. And in the national consultations, Minister Santia Bradshaw, who will be acting Prime Minister for a large part of the time in August, as well as for 2.5 weeks in August, when I propose to take leave, and as well as the Minister of Health, Jeffrey Bostic. The two of them will join Ministers Jordan and Abrams in the national consultation, which will be 4 such sessions that will be zonal, but they will have to be hybrid given the COVID protocols. So the unit will determine how many people can go into the largest town hall entity that we have, whether that is Alexandra School or St. Lucie Secondary or whatever, and who is not there will also be accommodated by way of technology, Zoom or WebEx or whichever mechanism they choose to use. This is to allow us to give as many Barbadians, whether sectorally or nationally, the opportunity to be heard against the background of the legal opinion which is being received. And this will relate, as I said, to both mandatory vaccinations as well as mandatory testing. And the legal opinion and the views and perspectives of all will be taken into account. We would love to reach consensus as a social partnership and as a country, and we pray and hope that we can still do so. But I've already indicated to the country that this government has always held the perspective: consult, communicate, and where we can't, we will not fail to govern. But we as Barbadians understand how we do things, and typically Barbadians respect and want that level of consultation with respect to these matters. I believe that we will then reconvene in the social partnership at the end of August for us then to be able to report back to the country what is the situation. Without prejudice to all of that, however, we have all agreed that it is in our interest to strongly advocate testing, regular testing, as well as vaccinations to be taken by all Barbadians and all persons living here. Why? Because we are satisfied beyond a shadow of a doubt that the vaccinations do reduce the level of sickness as well as the possibility of death, and they do reduce the incidence of transmission with respect to persons being in the same place. And therefore, without prejudice to our waiting for the opinion and doing the consultations on mandatory testing and mandatory vaccinations, we have all agreed that we will ramp up our own internal communication as well as our public education program, recognizing that we also still have to balance it with supply of vaccines, which we are still awaiting additional ones. I think that the last time I spoke on the 29th of June, when we received the 30,000 vaccines then, I indicated that we still anticipate more will come, but I've also told you on every occasion that I've spoken that regrettably this is the wild, wild west out there, and therefore people keep changing times or dates or source of supply, and therefore we have still to work within the possibility of what is available to us. I think that that represents the totality of the essence of our discussions. Labor, private sector, yes? Have we left out anything? I'd like to invite, if anyone wants to add to that or to say anything that reinforces the point, please feel free to do so, labor or private sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The private sector certainly is supportive of the Prime Minister's request. We have had consultation here today. We haven't changed our opinion about the need for a mandatory vaccine or the need for increased testing across Barbados. And we certainly urge every Barbadian to do so. However, we have agreed to work with the social partnership members, our labor friends and our government associates to try and ensure that we come to a position that is workable for all of Barbados. So we look forward to doing so over the next few weeks. We ask our membership in the private sector to bear with us. We hope that you understand the position that the Prime Minister has asked us to support, and we are certainly willing to do so. But we encourage every Barbadian, do what is right, mask up, sanitize, social distance, get vaccinated, and get tested as regularly as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? General Secretary, Madam. General Secretary.
The Barbados Workers Union wishes to align itself with the position or the comments that have been made so far both by the Prime Minister and the private sector. From our standpoint, we regard that the best way that we're going to get cooperation by everybody is if people are fully educated and aware of what the issues are and what is at stake. And that is something that we can't take for granted. And it is for that reason in particular that we fully support a campaign or an initiative to pursue a sensitization program which does not present a shadow of force on people, but it presents an opportunity for each citizen that is not fully aware of the issues, all the pros and cons surrounding what we're dealing with and what is at stake. It provides all of us an opportunity to be fully sensitized. So we are on board and we look forward to these discussions rolling out over the next few weeks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. O'Neill.
Good evening all, Madam Prime Minister. The social partnership meeting today is and was useful in creating the environment for a different tone to emerge. And that is why CEDUSAB at this point would have no difficulty in encouraging as wide as possible a cross-section of the Barbadian population, not just a cross-section, in encouraging the Barbadian population to be vaccinated as a means of a defense against the war on COVID. And it just bears out what we've always known, that when there is a coming together, when there is a consultation, when there is a respect for the other person, then great things can happen. Of course, we recognize that for those who doubt, for those who have fears, then that puts an added responsibility on us to educate as widely as possible and as intensely as possible, so that that history will record that this has been another battle fought and won because of the Barbadian capacity to come together and face whatever crisis may be before us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Jeffrey?
Thank you, Prime Minister. I just want to say that on behalf of the tourism industry, which we all know has been one of the hardest hit, or the hardest hit industry by the pandemic, we certainly look forward to the recovery of the industry. And we believe that the consultation today has set the groundwork for one of the things that will be necessary for the industry to recover. We've been working throughout this pandemic, in consultation with many other agencies to put a number of things in place. And this, we believe, will be no different. And we look forward certainly to working with the labor movement and the government and the other social partners to move this process forward as quickly as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that the one thing that I'd like to say is that, and I'm sorry, anyone else? Sorry, Mr.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I think what I would just want to say briefly is that I would like to commend the labor movement and the persons from government who were at this meeting for the way that the meeting was conducted this afternoon, because certainly we know that the business sector have been obviously feeling immense pain from the closures and so forth that happen when there are cases, but I really would like to pay homage and thank the labor unions for the way that this meeting was held in such an amicable way, and thank you, Prime Minister, for facilitating. Thank you.
Thank you. At this stage, we would like to appeal to all persons to stay their hand. We can't make you stay your hand, but we do feel that there is merit in us attempting to reach this national consensus over the next 4 weeks, guided by the law. There are other legal opinions within CARICOM that we've seen, but we believe that we need to have our own, and we've set about that task. In fact, the Attorney General had started before today, but the opinions will be available, we hope, by the 6th of August, so that we can then share them with the public. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions from the media? If none, Mr. Monsey.
Yes, good night to you, Prime Minister, and all members of the Social Partnership.
Good night.
Just one quick question from me. You did have some lengthy discussions this afternoon. Obviously, you have not arrived at a consensus as yet, but listening to everyone at the table here, it seems as though you seem to be on a very similar accord. Could you give me an idea of some of the divergent views, if any, that were presented during this meeting?
Mr. Monsey, I think you have a State of the Union program, right? I promise that I will come on it after the process has been completed. But the one thing that you have learned in life is that you do not set and agree on a process and do then your best to undermine it before it has started. So in the circumstances, I will decline that ball outside the off stump and allow it to go to either the keeper or the boundary, given that we're in cricketing mode. And I do keep to that promise. Thank you. I shall. Thank you.
Good evening, Prime Minister. The meeting would not only have dealt with the issue of COVID-19 and the vaccination process, but a number of other burgeoning issues that would have been on the table of labor and other industries. Could you care to elaborate on any of them, or is the process still continuing?
Not at this stage. The process is continuing on a number of them. We expect to come back and that we expect to deal with the issue of a prices and incomes policy and protocol. That process is advanced, but their Minister of Labour will tell you that they're meeting with the subcommittee of the social partnership. There was a hold-up on an issue of transfer pricing, and that's really the only thing that we're waiting on, so that the subcommittee can review the materials and report back to the full social partnership. I hope that we can have a report in hand before the end of August, such that when we meet at the end of August, we're in a position to deal with these two most challenging issues of prices as well as the mandatory vaccination and mandatory testing of COVID-19. There are other issues that we've agreed to, for example, a review on the structure and functioning of the public service, and we also will continue on the matter of other individual concerns that members had that really we've remitted to the head of the public service so that the particular institution can have meaningful discussions on those issues. Other than that, we took the last matter of the protocols. BAMP's position will go to the subcommittee of cabinet to review their recommendations and to determine what we can accept and what we can't, bearing in mind that BAMP is a member of the EOC and therefore does have two bites at the cherry, but we've agreed in spite of that to still allow them to meet. Minister Walcott was out of the country at an ECLAC meeting in Mexico, representing. I believe he returns today when he finishes his quarantine. We expect that they will have that meeting by early next week for us to continue to review our position. But in any event, I think you know that Minister Bostic has always been managing this on a day-to-day basis, so that if things come up that require action, I've given the country the analysis, gas and brakes, and we will continue with that approach. Any other questions?
Yes, good evening, Prime Minister. Kareem Smith from Barbados today. Given that it would appear that there is some consensus on the issue of vaccinations.
Process, if I can help you.
Yes.
There's consensus on process.
Right. Was there any discussion or consensus on the issue of who should pay for mandatory testing? Because I know
you're putting the cart before the horse. You understand? We anticipate that once these things come back, we'll be in a position to address them, but we need to settle where we are going first. We also recognize, and this we've taken a decision on, that the government of Barbados is not going to pay for persons who are traveling anymore for tests. I think we've carried people for a long time, and we've come to the conclusion and commitment at the level of cabinet that anybody who is traveling can afford to pay for their tests. And I think that it is going to be so much a part of our future that we've had to make that commitment. The government still continues, however, to carry the cost of quarantining for all primary contacts, as you know, and we've done that as a policy of containment. We also carry the isolation of all positive persons, not just because we want to, but because a person's medical condition, when positive, can change in a matter of hours. And therefore, we believe that unlike other countries where persons are allowed to stay at home and recover from COVID, we prefer you to be under medical supervision, and we also want to ensure that we can limit the containment of the spread. If you were to ask me what I think two of the most important policy decisions we have made as a government, it has been to undertake the cost of testing, undertake also the cost of supervision and containment for persons in isolation and quarantine based on the criteria that I just pointed out. That if you are a primary contact, come out of circulation so that we can at least contain the potential for spread, because we don't know yet if you are positive or not until we test you, and it's usually a 5-day period for 2 tests. And similarly, if you are not well and are positive, or you are even asymptomatic and positive, we prefer to have you there because you are always asymptomatic until you become symptomatic. And no one knows the hour or minute when that may turn from asymptomatic conditions to symptomatic. So it's a price we pay, but Barbados is 166 square miles. And therefore we're conscious that we have to do a little more than most in order to contain our situation. Any more questions? If none, thank you very much, and we look forward. Mr. O'Neill, you're rushing. We look forward. I know that we were here long. We look forward. We look forward to being able to put this issue behind us, but let us also remember that we do things best as a nation when we try to do it together. We won't always agree, but where we can agree as much as possible, it then reduces the opportunity for dissension and division. And I thank the members of the social partnership yet again for their commitment to country and patriotism in allowing Barbados to do things in an orderly manner that befits who we are as a people. Thank you, and God bless.